The sun was hanging high above the wide desert sky, burning bright over a long, empty Arizona highway. The air was dry, and the road seemed to stretch on forever like a black ribbon disappearing into the horizon. Daniel drove with his windows half down, feeling the warm wind on his face. He had been on the road for hours, listening to the soft hum of his car engine, enjoying the peace of being alone with his thoughts. Daniel was the kind of person who liked quiet places. He wasn't someone who looked for trouble or excitement. He liked to read, work hard, and help people when he could. His parents had raised him to believe that kindness didn't cost anything, and good deeds had a way of returning to a person's life when they least expected it. He didn't know it yet, but that belief was about to lead him into a story he would never forget. As he passed mile after mile of empty road, something caught his eye in the distance. A small silver car was parked on the shoulder, its hood lifted. Beside it, an older woman stood, shading her face from the sun with her hand. There were no other cars around, no gas stations for miles. Daniel slowed down without even thinking. "Someone needs help," he murmured to himself as he pulled over. He parked a few feet behind the car, switched on his hazard lights, and stepped out. The heat hit him like an oven door opening. He squinted and walked toward the woman. She stood tall, wrapped in a patterned shawl, her long silver hair tied back. She looked like she had been waiting for a long time. "Hello, ma'am," Daniel said politely. "Do you need help?" She turned toward him slowly, her face calm but tired. There was something strong and steady in her eyes, something that told Daniel she was not afraid. "Yes," she said in a clear, steady voice. "The tire is flat. I don't have anyone to call. The sun has been burning me for hours." Daniel glanced at the tire. It was completely deflated. He smiled kindly and said, "Don't worry. I'll change it for you." The woman didn't smile right away, but she gave him a small nod, as if she was testing his sincerity. Then she stepped back and watched as he opened her trunk and pulled out the spare tire. The ground was hot beneath him as he knelt down and started to work. Sweat ran down his forehead, but Daniel didn't mind. He liked the feeling of helping someone. As he loosened the lug nuts, he could feel the woman's eyes on him. Not in a suspicious way, but as if she was studying him carefully, trying to understand who he was. "You don't know me," she said after a moment. "But you stopped." Daniel chuckled softly, still focused on the tire. "Well, I saw you were in trouble. Anyone would stop." She tilted her head. "No, not anyone. Many cars passed. You were the only one who stopped." Daniel didn't know what to say to that, so he just kept working. When the new tire was finally in place, he stood up and brushed the dust off his jeans. "There you go," he said cheerfully. "You're good to go now." The woman looked at the car and then at Daniel. This time she smiled. A small, warm smile that seemed to carry both gratitude and something else he couldn't quite name. She reached into her shawl and pulled out a small leather pouch. "Please," she said, holding it out to him. "Take this." Daniel raised his hands and shook his head. "Oh no, ma'am, I can't take anything. I just wanted to help." But she insisted, pressing the pouch gently toward his hand. "This is not payment. This is a thank you. My people believe a good deed must be honored." He accepted it slowly, feeling the soft leather between his fingers. Inside, he could hear a soft rattle like tiny stones or beads. It felt old, handmade, and meaningful. "Thank you," he said softly. For a moment, they stood there in silence. The wind whispered across the desert, and a bird cried out in the distance. It was one of those rare moments that felt bigger than the world around them. Then, just as Daniel was about to turn back to his car, the woman spoke again, not softly this time, but with a voice that carried power. "I heard you want a wife," she said firmly. Daniel froze. He turned around slowly, wondering if he had heard her correctly. "I'm sorry, what?" he said with a nervous laugh. She took a step closer, her eyes steady and serious. "I heard you want a wife. My daughter is perfect for you." Daniel blinked, unsure how to respond. This was not something he expected to hear on a hot, empty highway in the middle of nowhere. I think you must be mistaken," he said gently. "I was just trying to help." The woman didn't look offended. In fact, she seemed amused by his confusion. "No mistake," she said. "I don't speak without meaning. My daughter is strong. She is kind. You have a good heart. I can see it. I knew it the moment you stopped your car." Daniel felt a strange mix of surprise, confusion, and curiosity. Her words carried a quiet confidence, almost like she already knew something about his life that he hadn't shared with anyone. He gave a small, polite laugh, scratching the back of his neck. "That's very kind of you, ma'am, but—" She lifted her hand gently, not to silence him, but to make him listen. "You don't have to answer now. I only speak what I know. Good men are rare. You are one." Her calm certainty left Daniel speechless. There was no pressure in her voice, no hint of force. It was simply a statement firm and clear, like a truth she had carried for years. "May I at least know your name?" Daniel asked finally. She nodded. "My name is Ayanna." The name suited her. It had a quiet strength just like her. "And your daughter?" Daniel asked, almost without realizing why. "Leona," Ayanna replied. "She is as strong as the wind and as soft as the river. She has a heart like yours." Daniel didn't know what to say. He wasn't sure why, but something about her words touched him deeply. He had never thought about marriage this way, not as something arranged, but as something felt in the soul. Ayanna stepped closer and placed her hand gently on his arm. Her touch was light but warm, like a silent blessing. "You will come visit," she said, not as a question but as a promise. "When the wind calls you, you will find us." Daniel could have said no. He could have laughed it off, driven away, and forgotten the strange conversation. But something inside him stopped him from doing that. Instead, he nodded slowly, almost without understanding why. "Maybe I will," he said. Ayanna smiled, and it was a smile that seemed to hold 1,000 stories. She climbed back into her car, started the engine, and waved once before pulling away. Her car disappeared down the long road, leaving Daniel standing alone in the heat with the small leather pouch still in his hand. He turned it over and over, listening to the soft rattle inside. For a moment, he felt as though he had stepped into another world, a world where ordinary moments carried deep meaning. Daniel finally got back into his car and started the engine. But as he drove away, he couldn't stop thinking about the woman, her calm voice and the strange certainty in her eyes. "I heard you want a wife. My daughter is perfect for you." The words echoed in his mind over and over. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. She spoke like someone who knew his story even before it had begun. He laughed softly to himself, shaking his head. "What a day," he whispered. But deep down, a small part of him felt something shift, like a door had quietly opened inside his heart. The desert stretched on in front of him, silent and endless. But now it didn't feel so empty anymore. It felt like it was carrying a secret, waiting for the right moment to reveal the rest of the story. Daniel drove for a long time that day, but no matter how far he went, his mind couldn't leave the moment on the desert road. The sun slowly lowered behind the mountains, painting the sky in orange and gold, but all Daniel could hear in his heart was the woman's steady voice. "I heard you want a wife. My daughter is perfect for you." At first he tried to brush it off. It sounded like something from an old story, something that happened to other people, not him. But the memory of her eyes, calm, wise, and unshakable, stayed with him. It wasn't just her words that had touched him. It was the way she had spoken them, as if she already knew what the future would bring. The small leather pouch she had given him was still sitting in his car's cup holder. Every time he looked at it, something inside him felt warm. He didn't know why, but the gift felt important, like a key to a door he hadn't opened yet. The days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Daniel returned to his normal life, work, errands, quiet evenings at home. But something inside him had changed. The memory of that day didn't fade. It grew brighter, like a soft light shining inside his chest. One evening, after a long day at work, Daniel sat on his porch with a cup of tea. The night air was cool and gentle. He took the leather pouch from his pocket and shook it lightly. The soft sound of beads echoed like a whisper. He opened it carefully for the first time. Inside there were 3 smooth river stones, each carved with tiny hand-etched designs. They were simple but beautiful, like something made with love, not for money but for meaning. As he held them in his hand, he remembered Ayanna's words, "When the wind calls you, you will find us." He didn't know exactly what that meant, but at that moment a light breeze brushed against his face. It was quiet, almost like the world itself was gently reminding him of something unfinished. Daniel smiled softly to himself. "Maybe it's time," he whispered. A few days later, he packed a small bag, filled his car with gas, and set out toward the reservation she had told him about. He didn't know exactly what would happen, and he wasn't sure what he was expecting, but he felt peaceful, like he was following a path that had been waiting for him all along. The road was long and quiet, just like it had been that day. When he reached the edge of the reservation, he saw wide open land, tall trees, and a calm river running through. A group of small homes stood not too far away, their lights warm and welcoming. Daniel parked and stepped out, holding the leather pouch in his hand. He walked slowly, unsure of how to introduce himself. But as he approached, someone called out to him, "Daniel." The voice was soft but strong. He turned, and there she was, Ayanna. She was standing near a wooden fence, dressed in a shawl just like before. But this time her smile came easily. It was the kind of smile that made Daniel feel like he had returned to a place he didn't even know he had missed. "You came," she said simply. Daniel nodded. "I wasn't sure when, but I felt like it was the right time." She stepped closer and touched the leather pouch gently. "The stones called you," she said. "I knew they would." Daniel didn't ask how she knew. Somehow it felt natural. Ayanna led him toward the river. The sound of water filled the quiet air. Not far from the edge, someone was sitting on a large flat rock looking out over the water. As Daniel got closer, he saw her, Leona. She had long dark hair tied back in a loose braid, and she wore a simple dress that moved softly in the wind. There was something strong and graceful about her, just as Ayanna had said. "Leona," Ayanna said gently, "this is the man I told you about." Leona turned slowly and their eyes met. Her gaze wasn't shy but calm and curious. Daniel felt his heart beat faster, not out of fear, but out of something he couldn't quite explain. "Hello," she said softly. "Hi," Daniel replied, his voice quiet but steady. For a moment they just looked at each other. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was peaceful, like they had both stepped into a story already written. Ayanna smiled quietly and left them by the river, giving them space. Daniel and Leona sat down on the large rock, the water shining beside them. She was the one who spoke first. "My mother told me about the man who stopped on the road," she said. "She said he had a kind heart." Daniel laughed softly. "I just changed a tire." Leona tilted her head slightly. "No, you stopped. That is not a small thing. Many people don't stop anymore. My mother notices things others don't." Daniel felt warmth spread through him. "Your mother is special." "Yes," Leona said with a gentle smile. "She sees what others miss." They talked for a long time. At first it was about simple things, where they grew up, what they liked to do, their families, their dreams. But as the stars came out, their words grew softer and more meaningful. Leona spoke about her people, their land, and how they believed everything happened for a reason. Daniel spoke about his quiet life, his love for small good things, and how that day had stayed in his heart. She listened closely, not interrupting, and when she spoke, her voice carried a peaceful strength. It wasn't like talking to someone new. It was like remembering someone familiar. As the night grew deeper, Ayanna returned and invited Daniel to stay in their guest cabin. Over the next few days, Daniel spent time with Leona and her family. He learned about their traditions, their stories, and the quiet beauty of their way of life. They shared meals outside under the stars, told stories around a fire, and laughed softly in the cool evening air. Daniel had always lived a simple life, but here, simplicity felt richer. Every word, every gesture had meaning. Every smile felt like it carried a story. Leona and Daniel grew closer without trying. They didn't make big promises, didn't rush anything. Their connection was quiet but deep, like roots growing beneath the ground where no one could see. One afternoon, Leona showed Daniel a small path that led up to a hill overlooking the valley. The wind was gentle and the view stretched endlessly in every direction. "This is my favorite place," she said. "When I was a child, I came here to listen to the wind." "It always tells the truth," Daniel smiled. "What does it say now?" She closed her eyes for a moment. "It says you belong here more than you know." Daniel didn't know what to say to that. But in that moment, standing on the hill beside her, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Real peace. Weeks turned into months. Daniel began visiting often, each visit lasting longer than the last. He helped Ayanna with small repairs, walked with Leona by the river, and shared stories late into the night. Slowly, without planning it, he became part of their world. And just as slowly, he realized that what Ayanna had said that day on the road wasn't just a bold statement. It was a quiet truth she had seen long before he had. Daniel wasn't a man who believed in signs, but when he looked into Leona's eyes, he didn't need a sign. He felt it. She wasn't just someone he liked. She was someone he could build a life with, someone who made the world feel softer, warmer, and brighter. One clear evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Daniel stood on that same hilltop with Leona. The golden light wrapped around them like a warm blanket. He turned to her with a gentle smile. "When I stopped on that road," he said softly, "I thought I was just helping someone. I didn't know I was walking into the rest of my story." Leona's eyes shone softly as she reached for his hand. "My mother always says the wind carries people where they need to go," she whispered. "Maybe it carried you here." Daniel squeezed her hand gently. "I think it did." Ayana joined them a few minutes later, her shawl flowing in the wind. She didn't say much. She didn't need to. Her smile said everything. She had known this moment would come from the very beginning. Daniel's life had changed, not with noise or grand events, but with quiet kindness and unexpected meeting, and a woman's steady faith in the way life brings the right people together. From that day forward, Daniel wasn't just someone who passed through their land. He was part of their story, and they were part of his. The desert road where it all began still stretched endlessly across the land, but now it was no longer just a lonely highway. For Daniel, it was the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter filled with love, peace, and the kind of connection that doesn't fade with time.